Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wayne Jiang, and on behalf of the PHCC Educational Foundations and our sponsors at Kohler, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, 4 Steps to Boosting Your New Leads and Winning More Repeat Business in 2017. And we're pleased to have Brian Kraff here and his team at Market Hardware. But before we get started, a couple things. Your mics are muted. However, we do encourage questions. If you look to the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a box labeled questions. You can open it up, type in questions as the presentation goes along, and I'm sure the team would, if they don't get to them during the presentation, they will get to them at the end of the presentation. And as always, I will be setting up a follow-up email. In that email, there will be a link to rewatch today's webinar along with the PowerPoint slide. And with that, I'd like to present to you the team at Market Hardware.
Hey there, Wayne. Thanks so much. Brian Kraff here. I just want to do a quick sound check. Wayne, you can hear me okay, right?
Perfect.
All right, great. Hey, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to our January 2017 webinar, 4 Steps to Boosting Your New Leads and Winning More Repeat Business in 2017. Really excited. So many great things happening in the Internet, changes in digital targeting and using new technologies to help all kinds of Internet marketing get better and better, and yes, these are things that plumbing and heating and cooling folks can use and are using successfully. So we're really excited. It's going to be a great hour. We're going to be very mindful of your time. Thank you for being with us. As always, thank you, Cindy, Wayne, Alicia, and the team at PHCC for providing education like the hour that we're about to go through. And really excited to have Doug Schatz with me, our Director of Operations, Alon Parkan, you've heard from many times. He writes the articles that you've potentially read about various web marketing topics and does all of our marketing as well. And I've got Matt Horn, who runs our search optimization as well as our ad display operation. So between the 4 of us, we're going to have what we hope to be a fast-paced but also fun presentation. But it's a discussion too, and you do have the ability to ask questions, and we love questions. And so we can hear ourselves talk all the time. What we want to do is make sure you get the benefit of being a PHCC member and having taken the time to be on this webinar. So what that means is all questions, send them through. And we will address as many of them as we can during the hour. If we cannot address your question or it's not appropriate for this particular topic, we will reach back out to you, so send us something as well. We'll also have a couple of goodies at the tail end of this program, so do stay till the very end so you can see what some of those good goodies and freebies are. But on to the education. You know, things are changing so fast that it's really important to keep up. And you're on the phone right now, so you know it's valuable. You're already ahead of your competitors. As Google evolves and changes, you know, daily, monthly, quarterly, yearly, we're seeing lots of things. You know, at this point, it's now becoming incredibly vital to, of course, have a mobile website. But there are even other changes that are happening where now if you ask for credit cards or ask for passwords on your website, Google Chrome, the browser Google Chrome, will now ask if you have a secure certificate. If you don't, your website is going to show that it is not secure to your potential customers. So for those of you that actually take credit cards online, that's definitely something to ask your web developer about. That's just one example of the many changes that are always happening. But when you're staying on top of your website, of your search optimization, of the reviews that you have out there, of your listings on the different directories out there, and connecting them into one content strategy, as we've talked about over the years, the people that do that, those are the winners in the room. And by the way, we don't believe that digital marketing is the only marketing you should do. We very much believe that everything from billboards to truck wraps to door hangers to direct mail to printed newsletters, all of these things help. What we do know is that more and more, as the population, you know, ages out of just the Yellow Pages book and into Google and Facebook, we know all roads sort of lead to your website, and your website's got to look great, and it's ultimately got to convert visitors into callers and those callers into customers. Otherwise, the whole thing isn't worth anything. So we're going to now talk about how to acquire new clients and also how to retain new clients using some incredible strategies. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Alon. Alon, I tried to give as an exciting intro as I could. I'm pumped because this is going to be a big game-changing year for a lot of folks on the line. Take it away.
All right, so thanks for that introduction, Brian, and thanks again, Wayne and the folks at PHCC for having us do this webinar. We're all super excited to be here for a lot of reasons, and we have a lot to cover, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this slide, but I want to give a little bit of a reference for why we're here, and part of that is because we've worked with plumbing, heating, and cooling professionals for such a long time. We've actually been in business in the web marketing industry for about 14 years, and the bulk of those have been spent working with plumbing, heating, and cooling professionals. So we've seen firsthand how so many of these strategies have changed around over the years, how some have grown in popularity, how some have lessened in popularity. We've seen some of the greatest success stories and some of the non-success stories. We've even heard a lot of the horror stories about web marketing, of which there are some. It's the nature of the business. When there's so many different web marketing providers out there, there's going to be some that are a lot more reliable and trustworthy than others. So we've seen these trends. We've seen this stuff happen, and we're here to share that information with you. That's why PHCC has us come back and do this presentation a couple times a year, is because we want to share with PHCC members what kind of stuff works and what doesn't work. So we have it here, but we're all about education. We want to teach the ins and the outs of web marketing. Maybe you're just interested in learning the basics. That's fine. We're going to be able to help you out. If you want to go in depth about some of these topics, we're going to try to cram as much as we can into this presentation. But we're happy to keep the conversation going. So if you want to talk about some of these strategies after the call, we're more than happy to do that. So definitely take us up on that. So let's identify what those 4 steps are. We're going to take a high-level view about those steps on this slide, and then we're going to get into detail about each one of these. So the very first step, the first option, the thing that you can't really live without in 2017, excuse me, when it comes to your web marketing, is having a responsive website. We're going to tell you why that's so important in 2017. It's more important than it ever has been before because search engines are paying more attention to that than they ever have been. The next step is actually getting your website out in front of people, and the way that we've seen companies do that really successfully is using search engine optimization. So Matt, who sees dozens, if not probably close to 100 SEO campaigns, a lot of which are in the plumbing, heating, cooling industry, he's going to tell us a little bit about how he gets an SEO campaign set up and some of the steps that he uses to put it in place. The good news is, everybody on the call, we're going to give you some strategies that you can actually put into place on your own that's going to help you rank a little bit higher. So we'll teach you a little bit about that. Then we're going to change gears. We're going to talk a little bit about social media and email, and it's going to be a combination of Doug and I telling you about that. Really great strategies. They work really well when done the right way, and that's what we're going to show you. So the last piece is going to be display ads. Doug and Matt are both going to talk about that. It's sort of these newer outside-the-box marketing strategies that can really make a difference because it's the kind of stuff that not a lot of plumbing and heating pros are doing yet. So if that's something that you want to try, you want to get a little bit more outside the box with your marketing, then definitely stay tuned for that section because we've got a lot of great stuff to share. So let's jump in. Doug, let's bring you on the line. You're the guy that's having these consultations more than just about anybody out there. You know web marketing, specifically as it relates to the plumbing, heating, cooling industry, as well as anybody. And this is a really important piece. Tell everybody on the line why it all starts with your website. Why is that the foundation of everybody's web marketing?
Thanks, Alon. And folks, I know most of you on the line have been probably taking your website seriously for 10 plus years now. That's what makes PHCC members so unique, is that you're usually on the cutting edge, but it's really important now more than ever to take a step back and look at whether your website's actually accomplishing what you want it to. What we really mean by that are you converting as many visitors to the website into either calls or requests for estimates as you possibly can? First and foremost, you definitely want to make sure that you have ways to measure the success of the website. So it's always a good idea to have an analytics tool. Google Analytics itself is free in order to understand how people interact with the site. But the key thing here is when people visit the site, you want to drive them to take an action using what we call calls to action, and we'll show you an example of that here, and making sure that the website itself It's structured in a way that's as search engine friendly as possible so that you're getting the ranking you need, whether it's in organics or in the map section, in order to drive those conversions. So the most important thing, folks, again, when people get to the site, they need to know who you are, what you do, where you do it, and how to contact you. So why don't we take a look at a quick example here and kind of show folks a little bit of what we're talking about. So on the left here, we've got a before and after. And on the left side of the site, I think it's important to note right off the bat, this isn't a bad website, folks. This is just a dated site that's not accomplishing the goals that we want it to. A lot of you may notice a lot of the websites that look a little bit more modern are very visually driven these days. Big, bold pictures that fit the whole screen where, you know, you've got happy families or a contractor doing his work. But the thing about it is that demonstrates professionalism. And so when you look at the one on the right, this website I think is about a year old or so, right front and center, you can tell who these folks are, what they do, where they do it, and again, how to contact them. And when I referred to calls to action on the last slide, what that specifically means are a handful of the things that you see here. So in the header of the website, you've got the big red have an emergency button, as well as schedule an inspection and request service. In addition to that, we have 4 other calls to action specifying the services that they provide and a great Our Mission call out in the top right. So if you're a homeowner and you have an issue and you visit a website like this, right off the bat, within 10 seconds, you know that these folks do or do not provide the service that you're looking for, and especially if you're in need of an emergency, you've got that great red call out that's going to drive conversions and make sure that you get that emergency job before anyone else. So it's less so about having a very content-heavy homepage these days and more about driving conversions by having the call-outs where you need to keep them.
Yeah, and I love this site. I mean, you said it, Doug. On the left, it's not necessarily a bad site, but there's just some things on there that nowadays, maybe that worked really well a couple years ago, but nowadays it's not necessarily stuff that people want to see, right? When it comes to website design in 2017, simpler is better. People don't necessarily want to read through a ton of information. We have really short attention spans when it comes to websites on the internet nowadays, and we want to see what you do, where you do it, how to reach you, and we want that information front and center and as simple as possible. Even little things, like if you take a closer look on the left-hand side, you know, they decided to write in red text, special, special, special. Little things like that, they don't really resonate well with website visitors nowadays. It's kind of like cheap marketing, and it doesn't really work that effectively. So keep it simple, have those calls to action that say what you do and what makes you unique from your competitors. That's the sort of stuff that when somebody visits the website, that's what they want to see, and that's what's going to get them to actually pick up the phone and call you. Doug, let's talk about mobile devices. This is something we've talked about for 2-3 years now, and really since April 2015 when Google put out their first initial update about this, but they're actually going to be paying even more attention to this year. Why is that?
Well, as we've all seen, everybody spends an enormous amount of time on their phone. So there's no doubt that everybody on this call sees it in their everyday life and probably lives it themselves. But in particular, Google has really moved into a direction where if you don't have a mobile-friendly version of your website, and specifically a responsive site, it can actually hurt you in search rankings, folks. So when we talk about what a responsive website is, you're actually seeing a version of that here. The water specialist site that we were looking at on the last slide, here's the mobile version of it. Responsive means that the website adapts to fit whatever device is used to visit it. So it will adapt to fit a tablet, it will adapt to fit a smartphone, and it will look, as you saw on the last slide, like it does on a PC. In years past, there were mobile options where you might have had a simple 1- or 2-page version of your website built, and that's a fine placeholder. But again, for the past 24 to 36 months, Google has really come out and said, look, we want you to be responsive, and this year more than ever, we expect that they're going to say you have to be responsive, and you don't want to be the last one to the party. You don't want to be so late to the show here that it's actually hurting you in search rankings, because you probably worked hard to earn those search rankings, and if you lose them, it's going to take time to earn it back. But again, it's not just about Google, it's about people, and more than half of all searches are now done on mobile devices. So it's important to keep in mind that that varies by industry. Certainly there's a lot of that happening in on Facebook and in the media world and in general. But for the PHC contractors that we work with, we've actually seen as much, anywhere from 30 to 60% or more of traffic coming from mobile devices. A lot of that depends on your market and what your average clientele is like, but folks, that number is only going to increase. We're moving more towards a mobile world. It's not like we're going to backtrack here, and we're not in virtual reality mode just yet. So it's just important that you make sure that you are not only responsive, but when people get to the site, that they've got a great call button up top or right there in the middle, and that you're converting them as quickly as you can.
And we mention this pretty often, but there's a ton of website providers out there. Yes, we do website design. We love working with PHCC members, but you can get so many different options available to you in order to get a nice website out there. It could be a DIY provider, it could be a friend or family member, and it could be a web marketing firm like ours. But the point is, regardless of who you decide to work with or if you decide to do this on your own, these are really important elements to keep in mind when you're building a website for your business. Has to be mobile friendly, has to have some of those calls to action on there, and don't be afraid to put yourself in a potential customer's shoes. If they look at your website, are they going to know what you do, where you do it, what your service area is, what services you provide? So again, don't be afraid to put yourself in your customer's shoes and make sure that if they were to visit your website, that they know enough about your business that they're confident that you would do a good job in providing service to them. So let's change gears and let's talk about step 2, right? So we can check off step 1. We have a nice website. It's built to convert. Now we need to get it in front of people. And the best place to do that we've seen firsthand over the last several years is by getting it listed in the search results. And there's a couple of different ways to do this. So Matt, let's bring you on the line. Let's talk about the search result landscape. I want to speak mostly about SEO, but let's give everybody a little bit of background about the search result landscape and what specifically we're going to be talking about.
So before we dive into SEO, what it is, and a couple different steps and pointers on what you should be looking for when running a campaign, we do want to take a step back and look at the search result landscape. So this screenshot here on the left is an opening page of Google when somebody goes on and does a various search. Google is actually split up into 3 separate sections, and all 3 sections are unique and different from one another and how they work and how you can show up there. Up at the very top, section B is the paid search results. Pay per click, Google AdWords, these are all essentially the same thing. This is where you're actually spending money and bidding against your competitors for certain keywords to show up on page 1. We used to spend, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, entire hour-long presentations on paid search advertising. So we're not going to dive in here today, but it is still a very extremely effective way of doing some online advertising. Any questions specific to this section, please follow up with us afterwards. More than happy to talk with you further about it. What we're really going to focus on today is primarily section C, but before I get there, we do want to take a look and stop at section A, which are the local, the maps result of Google. Very important to make sure that your business is verified. Make sure you get that postcard and the PIN number from Google. Verify your business page, get all the accurate information added there, and also get reviews. This is going to help you show up in your local town. Not a guarantee, but if you have a physical address within a certain town, you have a verified Google business page with a handful of reviews, certainly going to help you show up there. And then section C is the organic or the natural results. And this really is what SEO is. Targeting this specific section, working with your website to show up for certain search terms on page 1 of Google. So we can just roll right into SEO, and Doug and Alon both have separately talked about the website itself, that being the first piece of any online marketing campaign. So once you get your website set up, taking a little bit of a deeper dive, taking a look at the content, taking a look at the coding, how the website was actually structured. One of the things is that the website needs to be unique and relevant to Google. Sometimes, unfortunately, there are, some of the template-y websites that are out there. We can just go on, plug in a company name, a picture, and all of a sudden they just spit back a website. But it's sort of the same coding, and it's sort of a replicate. One of the things Google is paying attention to is uniqueness to your website. So making sure that it's built that way with search engine-friendly coding. Take a look at the content, making sure that it's relevant. When we're trying to show up for certain search terms, we need to have some content that is talking about those search terms in itself, so making sure your website is set up with the different services that you guys provide, and then going back to, does the content contribute to conversions, and making sure we have the strong call to actions, which we've just touched on a little bit before. So before you even dive in, taking a step back, looking at your website itself, once you have all of this covered, then you're moving on to the next step here, where you actually are implementing some of these on optimization strategies. So you got your website, it's set up to show up on a mobile phone, you have some call to actions. All right, so now you're really ready to take it to the next level and start performing an SEO campaign. Before you start actually doing work and implementing some of these strategies to your website itself, you need to figure out, what do we want to show up for? What is relevant? What are some search terms that I want to get on page 1 and the popular ones within the industry? So some popular search terms we have listed here, plumbing repairs, plumbing service, drain cleaning. I mean, these are all very popular search terms. We know this because we've been doing SEO within the industry for 10 plus years, and also Google does give you some information. They don't give you a whole lot of information, but they can come back and say these certain search terms get X amount of hits on a monthly basis. So once we determine the most popular search terms that we want to show up for, there are some steps and some strategies of where to actually implement these search terms within the website. So there are certain areas in the site, such as title tags, header tags, the content itself within the website, that you want to make sure that you're strategically placing these search terms. When Google is looking at your website, they're actually looking behind the scenes. And in a second, I'm going to show a slide, but I'm going to turn it over to Alon before. But Google is actually looking at your website from a different angle that you and I are looking at it. They're going behind the scenes. And if we aren't telling Google what it is that we're relevant for and where it is that we do these jobs, you're sort of missing out. And so when Google is crawling yourself, it's extremely important for Google to be able to understand what it is you do and where you do it.
And I love just adding a little bit of emphasis on this slide, because this slide, this single slide, this is the sort of stuff that has made a difference in for the businesses that are PHCC members over the last couple years, because what they're doing is they're thinking about their top services and they're trying to figure out what searches are being done. We have some information from Google, some information that we've gathered, and we know what those top searches are. And it's undeniable that people are going online, they're typing things in like plumbing service in Bethesda, Maryland, where we're located, or plumbing repairs in Washington, D.C. They're doing those searches, and Google is ranking these websites on page 1, and those are the companies that are getting clicks to their website, and assuming they have a website that's built to convert, then they're getting the phone call. So this slide is really, really important. That's why I asked Matt if I could jump in just to emphasize that, because this is the key to SEO. This is basically SEO. Fundamentally, the most basic form is trying to figure out what searches are being done and then making sure that your website comes up for those searches. Now, it used to be the case a couple years ago that this was enough on its own. It's gotten a little bit more challenging, which we'll talk about in a second. But here's the good news. When I started in market hardware, I didn't know what a header tag was. I didn't know what a title tag was, and there's still a lot of behind-the-scenes work that I'm not that familiar with, and that's okay. I imagine that a lot of the folks on the line probably aren't familiar with some of those things, and what we want to do is put this slide together, the next one coming up here, which will help you figure that out. And this isn't necessarily stuff that you have to go and implement right away, but you can talk to your website provider, you can talk to your designer, the person in the office that handles your website, and they should know enough about header tags, about title tags to go and make these changes. So Matt, let's talk about those. Why do we keep talking about header tags and title tags? Why are those more important than some of the other aspects of the website's code?
So this is following up with the point that I was talking about before. Alon hopped back in, sort of manipulating your website in a way so that Google understands what it is you're talking about, the services you provide, and where you do it. Certain areas behind the scenes, up at the very top, highlighted in blue on our little screenshot here, maybe a little bit tough to read, but that is the title tag of the specific page of the website that is shown on the left. Each individual page has their own unique title tag, and this is one of the first things that Google, when they're crawling the website and they're crawling certain pages, are pulling out. So it's extremely important. One of the first things when running and setting up a campaign will be taking a look at some of these different title tags and figuring out where there's room for improvement. So you want to make sure that we have certain keywords in here, such as plumbing and repiping, within a couple of the different areas that you may service. And so that, once again, you're helping Google understand what the page is about. A little bit below, you see highlighted in yellow is the header tag. And also on the screenshot of the website on the left, you can see residential plumbing serving Indianapolis and surrounding towns. So we've got here residential plumbing, we're talking about Indianapolis, and it's a little bit of a call out here, but you are telling Google right out of the gate, this is the job that we provide, and this is where we do it. A header tag, it doesn't just look big on the page itself, it actually has more value with that in the code that Google is crawling. So Google is paying attention to this, and they're weighing the content in the header tag more than they do within the content below that tag. And this is just a simple, straightforward way for you to try to get yourself up in a better position with Google by a couple of these tips right here.
So for anybody on the line that's trying to do some SEO on their own, this is a great first step. And if you're in a less competitive market, if you're in a more rural area, this alone, this slide and the slide just before this might be enough to show up on page 1 in those markets. Now, unfortunately, the case is nowadays for most people that this isn't enough just on its own. There's a lot of other strategies that come into play. The search engines aren't necessarily telling everybody what their formula is for ranking websites, otherwise it would be easy to do this stuff, right? But they do tell us some of the most important things, and they've happened to say that title tags and header tags are two of the primary factors that they look at to try to figure out what you do and where you do it. So excellent place to start, but really it's only two of about 100, 150 different factors that they're taking into account when ranking websites. So what's happening nowadays is they're also paying attention to off-site strategies, and this is the kind of stuff that anybody in a more competitive market, you're going to have to do some of these off-site strategies in order to show up a little bit higher. So Matt, why is link building so important? Give us a little recap of what link building is and why anybody in a more competitive market is probably going to have to use this strategy.
So when, the online marketing really started coming out and people were going online doing searches, 8, 10, 12 years ago, all you probably needed was your website, and you probably just needed your address on the website, and a lot of everything else sort of fell into place with where you were ranking. And if you were in a smaller town, that's probably all you needed. A few years ago, it started getting much more competitive. Now when you look at the first page of Google, the maps are all just shrunk down to 3 spots. They don't have the paid search ads on the right-hand side anymore. The real estate on page 1 has really gone down, and so it is becoming more competitive. You also see a lot of these third-party sites that are out there, Home Advisor, Yelp, Angie's List. They have a lot of spots on page 1 as well. And so one of the things is now there is the off-site optimization strategies that Google is really paying attention to. So everything that we've really gone through these past, 6, 7 slides here was really talking about all of the on-site optimization strategy, where you can put certain keywords, what you can physically do on your website to get Google to understand and get you better rankings. This slide right here, we're talking about something a little bit different, which is off-site optimization and link building. So I have my website, Alon has his website. On my website, you can click a link that takes the user to Alon's website. Alon is receiving an inbound link from a reliable source on the web. So he's getting the benefit of gaining an inbound link coming from my website. The link from my site to his site isn't really doing me as much good as it's doing Alon by receiving the inbound link. So we tried to help kind of come up with a little visual here where you have your website right in the center, and then you can have blogs, partner companies, different directories, and then associations. And if you can have links coming back to your website, you're going to get a little bit of a boost with Google when it comes to, they're looking at these different ranking factors. This is another one that comes into play. So the more inbound links you can get from reliable sources on the web is what's going to help give you a little bit of a boost. But just as the same thing with all of your on-site work, there's a right way and a wrong way here. With the on-site work, you can't go in and dump in 45 cities within your title tag. Google's going to crack down on that, and you're trying to cheat the system a little bit. Same thing with this link building strategy is you don't want 500 links one month from some random website out there that has absolutely nothing to do with your business. So these need to be relevant links coming back to your site. Just think, it's more the quality of the link, not necessarily the quantity.
And here's the good news. Most websites out there, most websites specifically in the plumbing, heating, and cooling industry, they don't have a ton of links, right? They only have a small handful of links pointed to their website. So it's not like you need to go out there and figure out a way to get 100 links pointed to your site. You really only need a handful of quality inbound links. So take a little bit of time, think about some suppliers, some manufacturers you work with, if you have other colleagues that are in the industry. It's not a bad strategy to link to and from some of your colleagues in the industry, or go to your supplier and manufacturer, and if you have a page on their website, make sure that it includes your website URL. That's the sort of stuff that the top businesses are doing in order to show up higher on page one. So definitely take that into account. Really great strategy. So now let's change gears and let's talk about the third step. So we talked about a website, one that's built to convert, that's mobile friendly. We also talked about getting the website listed in front of people by using SEO. Now we're going to talk a little bit about social media and email newsletters. So the reason we batch these together is because there's a lot of common themes between the two, and we're going to talk about those over the next couple slides. But the stuff to keep in mind is that when it comes to social media specifically, and Doug's going to talk about email newsletters, but with social media, the great news is setting up on most of these platforms is actually going to be free. It's not going to cost you anything to set up a Facebook page or a Twitter profile. The key is actually being able to maintain a consistent, active presence on those platforms, and that's what takes time. That's usually the biggest holdup that keeps a lot of businesses from being successful in marketing themselves on social media, is that they don't have the time or they don't have a plan in place in order to maintain a consistent and active presence. The biggest mistake that businesses make when it comes to social media is making it seem like the lights are on but nobody's home. So what we all hate seeing here in the office is when we look at somebody's Facebook page or Twitter page and we see that they haven't posted to it in 3 years. Well, unfortunately what's happening is customers might be seeing that and then they might be wondering if you've gone out of business. And just by seeing that, they might pull the plug and then go look up one of your competitors instead. So the good news about social media, it's a great way of interacting with some of your customers and staying in touch with them and telling them stuff like why you're an expert, why you have credibility, showing them stuff about your staff and the fact that you guys are real people. The downside is if you don't keep up with that sort of stuff, it can make it seem like you're not active on there, and then that might let some people believe that you're no longer in business. So keep those into account. Here's a slide that we love sharing with people, because what this does is it helps you figure out exactly how much you have to post in order to maintain an active presence. So this is a slide that we've gotten great feedback over the last couple of years. That's why we always love bringing this back, and it shows you exactly how much you should be posting on things like Facebook, or making updates to your website, or posting to a blog, Twitter, etc. This will help maintain an active presence. What I don't like seeing is when I look at a Facebook business page and there's 5 posts within the course of the week and then nothing for months and months after that. Spread those posts out. A lot of these platforms will actually let you schedule posts out in advance, which is a really good strategy when you come up with a lot of great content, but you don't necessarily want to set reminders to post those on consistent schedules. Just schedule them out in the future. That'll help make it a little bit easier. There's one really important piece on here which I'm going to bring Doug on to talk about, which is reviews. This is something that doesn't just affect social media, but it also now affects SEO. It affects your general online presence. So, Doug, this is a change that we've made to this slide, which is unique because we haven't changed this slide around in 3 years, but why are we now talking a little bit more about reviews and their importance?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody on this call certainly has had to think about how online reviews affect their business, and some maybe even had some fires you had to put out if somebody wrote something really negative about you online. But in our professional opinion, we consider your Google Plus page, the profile that Matt was talking about earlier, where that you claim, the listing that shows up in the map section of Google, the most important place to generate reviews. And you may notice, folks, sometimes when you search for anything, whether it's pizza or a plumber, the results that show up in the map section have stars illuminated next to them sometimes, and sometimes they don't. It's when you get 5 or more reviews associated with your Google Plus listing that the stars illuminate. Now, as a consumer of any product or service, think about how compelling that is. Think about how much more likely you would be to click on that result if you have a review there. So we really want to hammer this home again. You can't stop all negative reviews. They say 10% of the population's crazy, folks. No matter how good you are at what you do, people are going to write negative stuff about you. So the most important thing you can do is get ahead of that by generating as many positive reviews as you can. There are a lot of review companies out there. Some of them are okay, and some of them are good. Some of them aren't. But just make sure that you're putting forth your own effort to generate those reviews. And one great way to do it, one quick tip for you, is look at your client list and see how many of your clients have Gmail accounts. If they're somebody who's been with you for a long time, write them a personal email or a letter asking them for a review and provide a direct link. You need to have a Gmail account in order to write a review on Google. However, lots of people have that now, and by asking a client politely for feedback on your service, you're not soliciting them, you're simply asking them to tell you how you could do your job better. And the last thing we got listed on here, just to wrap this one up, is a YouTube video. So Google owns YouTube, folks, so there is value in having content on YouTube, particularly when you embed, and that's just a fancy way of saying add, the YouTube video to your website. So if you have content out there that's been created, or video content, excuse me, definitely make sure that you get it on your site. You don't want to go overboard with it and slow down how your website loads, but video content is a great way to get credibility with Google and give people a 60 or 90-second piece about who you are.
All right, so I mentioned that social media is really tied into email newsletters, and the reason for that is because there's a lot of consistent themes between the two, and it all boils down to how you're balancing your content between educational content that makes you seem like an expert in your industry and promotional content that can help drive sales. And this is a really important component. You have to get the right balance, because that's what is going to sort of measure the difference of success between the people who do social media and email newsletters the right way and the ones that sort of go about doing it the wrong way. So what's the process of sending out an email newsletter, and how do you figure out what the right balance is for your business?
Well, of course, it all starts with gathering the emails, and I'm sure a lot of you have client lists or database management systems where you keep your client information, and I'm sure a lot of you are feeling a little panicked about not having collected enough of this data so far. Take a deep breath, everybody. It's okay. Just start making sure that you're collecting all of your clients' emails going forward, and of course remind them you're not sharing that information. People can be a little sensitive about giving out their emails nowadays, but any client that trusts you should share that with you. So as you collect the list of names, the next thing becomes, where do you take them? And the steps involved here is finding a platform to take them to. Before I get into that, what you really have to ask yourself first is this something I'm going to do on my own or internally, or is this something I'm going to find somebody to help me do? A DIY versus a DIFM solution. So if you're going to go with a DIY, Constant Contact is, of course, the most common or best known email platform out there, and a pretty easy one for you to use. But if you're going to go with somebody else, just make sure you learn a little bit about what their platform is, so that it's not something that can get you into a problem later on if you ever choose to cancel. But finding that platform is pretty much the easy part. There's lots of them out there. You can test them out. That's the easy step. The real challenge becomes the next one, and that's the content. So if you've ever tried to write an email newsletter before, I'm sure that you've sat there with a blank piece of paper or a blank Word document in front of you for a while trying to figure out how to fill in that content. I think the main thing to keep in mind here is write about what you know. And from our perspective, it's really more, email newsletters are more effective when you're focusing on educating your clients more than promoting a specific service. So actually, if you even look at the example on the right side, and there's a quick side point I want to make here, you'll notice that logo on top, content on the right. One very important aspect, if you're going to do this on your own or are working with somebody, is to not go too image heavy in the emails, folks. We all get those emails in Outlook or Gmail or whatever email system that you use where it's a whole bunch of broken images. Now, how is that going to convert anybody? You know, it's got to essentially be content that's educating your clients, and we call it the 90-10 rule, 90% educational, 10% promotional, that's reminding them, hey, it's January, it's cold outside, everybody, now's the time that you need to be keeping an eye out for these signs that your pipes may be freezing. And when you educate your clients about that, it may not be that they pick up the phone right away and call you and thank you for doing that. It reminds them that you're there and that you care, and that actually is much more likely to make them a client for the next 20 years than giving them a promotion at the time that they may, you know, that for some service that you're trying to get out there. So the other key thing here is consistency. We call it rinse and repeat, but really it's about consistency, folks. Not overdoing it and not underdoing it, but making sure that if you're out there sending out newsletters, whether you're doing it on your own or have somebody in your office or hiring a firm, stick to a schedule. We typically say about once a month is enough. Doing it more than that, you can kind of start to get under your client's skin, but every other month or even quarterly is okay. It's not so much how often you do it, it's more that you're consistent in when you do it and in the message that you have, because eventually you'll start to find that your clients will rely on you for this information, and that's when the email newsletter is doing its job of retaining. Because when you retain folks, it may not be your client who picks up the phone and calls you, it may be friend, family member, or neighbor of your client, because your client forwarded your email to their next door neighbor when they knew they were having a problem. So this is where email newsletter becomes not just a retention, but an acquisition tool. So we talked a little bit about the what, and now let's talk a little bit about the why. So of course, with any product or service that we talk about here, you know, everybody always asks how much. Okay, that's the first question that people want to know, how much. If you're doing a DIY solution, you're usually going to be looking at anywhere from $50 to $200 a month. Just depends on how customized that's going to be. A do-it-for-me solution is very often closer to $200 to $400, depending on who you're working with. But this is a very cost-effective way of marketing. If anybody, you know, and I'm sure most of you have done direct mail before, you know you're talking about thousands of dollars, not just getting the mail out, but the list acquisition and so on. This is a great marketing effort because it doesn't take a whole lot of return on that investment in order to really start to see the revenue generated from something like this. So that's a big reason why we're fans of this kind of marketing. The ability to track email in particular makes it very unique. You can see who clicked on it, you can see what they clicked on within the email, and as you start to measure these stats over time, you see which emails, whether it's the content or the offer, perform best, and you'll know at that time next year or 6 months later is the right time to deliver the same, not same content, but same offer to them in order to capitalize on that again. So again, the stats that you can pull from something like this teach you a lot about whether it's working for you or not. The speed with which you can send email is personally my favorite aspect, because if you're having a major weather event and you know your clients are going to pick up the phone and call you about something associated with their plumbing or HVAC units, you can get an email out the same day. There's really no other form of marketing that can reach as broad of an audience in as short a period of time as email newsletter marketing. So the speed with which you can get it out is something that we think makes it a no-brainer for everybody on this call to adopt as a strategy this year. And of course, personalizing. So marketing never works unless you're talking directly to the right folks. Addressing emails to people by first name, yeah, that's great, but taking it a step further and actually lumping your clients or bunching your clients into groups based on the products or services that they've bought from you in the past allows you to really send targeted marketing to them and puts them in a funnel for future products or services that you know that they will need at certain times. When you talk to your clients that way, folks, you'd see a tremendous shift in how they think about you and the services you provide, because they say, wow, he remembered that we bought this on that date and now it's time for this tune-up. I mean, that's a very, very compelling reason for you to stay top of mind.
And it's such a great strategy to be talking about on this webinar, because there are so many different ways to go about handling your email marketing. There's so many right ways to do it. There's so many wrong ways to do it. But it's really important to strike the right balance, how often you're sending, what your messaging is, When you're able to get those things done correctly, you're able to send out a really successful marketing campaign that's going to resonate well with your customers. They're going to be able to see that you're real people, that you know what you're talking about, that you're looking out for their best interests, and that's what's going to keep them coming back time and time again rather than seeing what else is out there for them. Now's as good a time as any to sort of give a quick recap, but also just talk about the fact that when it comes to web marketing, we say this a lot, there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So we talked about websites, we talked about SEO, and then we talked about social media and email. For the companies on the line that are looking to grow a little bit more aggressively, you're going to have to dedicate a slightly larger portion of your budget to your website and your SEO, because you're going to be needing to drive more website visits and more new customer phone calls, whereas anybody on the line that has a pretty steady presence in their market, you've been around a little bit longer, you don't have as much competition threatening you, then social media and email newsletters are going to be a better focus of your marketing dollars, because that's where you're going to be able to retain your existing customers and make sure that they come back time and time again. So you've got to take some time. It's what we hate to see happen is businesses, that fall for sales pitches and end up investing their marketing dollars in the wrong areas. You really need to figure out what's the best strategy for your business, and it all depends on what you're currently doing, what your competitors are doing, what your plans are, your goals are for this year. And those are the sort of things that you should be talking about with any marketing provider before you either agree to a contract or sign a deal with them or whatever it might be. Take some time to discuss those questions with them and make sure that you're in good hands. Now we're going to talk about a strategy that's really interesting, which is display ads. And the reason that I say this is so interesting is because when it comes to site and search retargeting and weather channel ads, they solve for a lot of challenges. We wanted to put this slide together because this is something that we did a full presentation on for PHCC last fall. We had a lot of really good feedback about it because it's based on these challenges, which are that first and foremost, so many of the people that visit your website, they're not calling you the very first time that they visit your site. In fact, only about 10% of the traffic that visits your website is going to call you right then and there. A lot of people need extra reminders from time to time, and it goes back to our point about people having short attention spans when they're traveling around on the internet nowadays. They might visit your website, but then they might get distracted. They might decide to go check their Facebook or whatever the reason is, but they need those extra reminders, sometimes 5, 6, or 7 times before they actually end up calling your business. The second challenge that we've heard so much about is that when it comes to marketing, you don't want to just cast a wide net, and you don't know who's going to actually be calling you or what customers you're getting. Now, it's important to cast a wide net and try to get traffic from different areas, but you want to be strategic in what areas you're going after. So one of the situations that we saw happen is that businesses that were being really successful were taking their same marketing budget, but they were going after very specific strategic zip codes in order to go after the customers that were living in the most affluent areas and residential areas, ones that were closer to their offices so they could do more jobs in a given day. So that's how you can take that same budget and make it go so much further. The way that we do that is with site and search retargeting and weather channel ads, and we're going to, all three of us really are going to talk about these strategies over the next couple slides, and we should be pretty good on time. But the key here is that these strategies work really well to not just acquire new customers, but also retain existing ones. So if you think about SEO specifically for customer acquisition, then you think about social media and email newsletters for customer retention, these strategies are going to help with both of those. So let's jump in, Matt. We're going to talk about site retargeting first, because this is one that is happening more and more nowadays. How does that process work, and why is it so effective?
Sure. So this site retargeting, everybody on the call has probably been retargeted to at least one point in time. Let's say you were doing some shopping around the holidays and you were on Amazon and you were looking for some presents. All of a sudden you moved over to ESPN to look up the score to a game. All of a sudden you're seeing an ad from Amazon follow you, most likely what you were just looking at when you were on Amazon. So the retargeting aspect is somebody hits your website, they leave your website and they go to another website. All of a sudden they're on the second website, and you can have an ad that actually follows them over to the second website. So the way that it works is there's a little cookie, is what's called, that's being dropped into a browser. That's kind of the technical term, but think about it. You visit someone's site, it pings you, and it pings your dashboard. So then you move on to another website. The internet, or Google, now is realizing they can follow you and show an ad for a website that you were just previously on. It's a little bit scary that they're able to do that now, but it's kind of what the internet here is. And as Alon was just talking about, many of the first-time visitors, once they get to your website, may not take action right away. This is a perfect example of how you can try to recapture some of the people that had hit your website. Let's say they were on their way home one day, hop on the metro, pull out their phones, they're doing a quick search for a plumber, and then all of a sudden it's their stop, they forget, they get off the subway, they're at home, eat dinner, go to sleep, wake up the next day, completely forgot they were ever on your website at all. They pull their phone back up later that day to check out, the news on the Wall Street Journal. All of a sudden now there's an ad from your website with your logo on it that is now being shown, and it sort of brings back in front of the consumer, or the potential consumer who was on your website, that's right, I do have to give these guys a call, and it's getting your brand back in front of that audience. So site retargeting is a great way to try to help, get your name back in front of the people who were on your website. And then the second one that I want to talk to you about is search retargeting. In this example, the potential consumer may have never even hit your website in the first place, and you can actually start displaying ads to them as well. So let's say they did a like-minded search for some of the related search that we have over here, clogged drain, or the cost of a plumber to come fix my drain. They can go to another website, but now the ad network realizes that they were doing these like-minded searches and can start displaying your ads in front of them as they hit these other websites. This is something that a lot of questions I often get when somebody's running an SEO campaign. All right, so what else can we be doing? We got some good rankings. We're doing really well. We seem like we're showing up great. What's next? What can I do to make 2017 better? This would be a perfect example. You're already getting exposure. You're on page one. People are hitting your site. Now you can actually go back and redisplay your ad in front of these users to try to get them to come back to your website. Everybody has the attention span today of like 4 seconds before they move on to something next. Let's say somebody was on your site. All of a sudden now they're thinking, that's right, I have to go check something else out. They forget all about it. Now you've got an ad there showing them. They click in, they pick up the phone, they give you a call. Great, great way. And then real quick, the last thing that I'm going to talk about on the site for search is to show you guys a couple quick examples. So when it comes to these ads, think about it. As Doug said earlier, it's always about, okay, cost. So what does it cost to do this? You can think for every impression shown, so every time your ad is shown, is about a cent per impression. So say you spend about $500 a month expecting about 50,000 impressions. That's getting your brand, your logo back up into about 50,000 users out there who are on these different networks. And once again, it's a fantastic way to try to recapture the audience. Some examples here, you can see where the arrows are pointing. You have your ads, you have some vertical, horizontal, some in the square. Multiple variations is what's going to help run a more effective campaign for you as well. You want to be able to show up in many different spots here. You do want these professionally done, though. As far as getting your ads set up, you want a professional create these because you want to make them look very good. When somebody hits the other site, it sticks out to them. That's right, I was on these guys' website yesterday. I do have to go back, pick up the phone, and give them a call. You may spend anywhere from $200 to $1,000 getting these images created, these banner ads set up for you. And then, as I said, spend maybe $500 a month getting 50,000 impressions. Another fantastic way of sort of these new online marketing strategies.
And you'll notice a lot of the same sort of themes that we talked about with website design, which is having the right calls to action on these actual ads, because you want to give somebody a reason to click on it. So not only are they seeing the ad, but when you have things on there like score with the winning app or reminders of what makes you unique, like 30 years of local experience, having those small subtle features built in your ad, when people see those, they're going to think, oh, that's right, Matt, you said it. I'm going to click back into this ad, go to this website, and it's finally time that I call them and have them come out and do the job that I needed. So super effective, works really well, and it can be really affordable depending on how big of an area you're trying to get your ads to show up in. Now there's another way to go about doing these, which is focusing specifically on the Weather Channel. Now we're not necessarily talking about actually doing TV ads on the Weather Channel here, right, Doug? We're talking about the Weather Channel app, and weather.com. So tell us, how did the Weather Channel get involved with web marketing, and why can this be such a great strategy, especially for HVAC and plumbing pros?
Yeah, I mean, I think in speaking with a lot of our clients and members about the Weather Channel in particular, the fit is, a natural one. For so many of you on the call, the jobs that you do are very often, not every day, but very, very often affected by the weather. And so what makes the Weather Channel so unique is that outside of Google, the Weather Channel has the second most information on us, Americans, based on our location, because for many of you, you probably have the Weather Channel app downloaded on your phone. The first thing that you do is you enter your zip code, and when you enter your zip code, folks, they know where you're located, and when they know that, the Weather Channel has a very unique way in order to display banner ads to you that are highly, highly localized, and what makes it even more localized is the fact that you can do it in the most profitable zip codes. These banners, much like the ones that Matt was talking about before, which would run across multiple websites, are concentrated in the Weather Channel network, so they would show on both weather.com and the app. But most people check the app 2 to 5 times a day, first of all, especially when there are major weather events occurring, and upwards of 70 million Americans have the app on their smartphone. So when you are able to run banners about a service that you're providing that's affected by the weather and do it in the most profitable zip codes that you operate in, it just seems like such a no-brainer that it's a real opportunity for you to stay in front of your clients when they're thinking about how the weather affects their home. And again, as much as anything else, as much as what we talked about with retargeting, this is a brand building tool as well. They're going to remember that they saw you the next time that they need a plumbing repair or an HVAC unit fixed or whatever the case may be. You're staying top of mind with these folks. And what takes it even a step further, folks, is the ability to ramp up or ramp down these campaigns based on those weather events. So severe thunderstorms, you can ramp up your banners. Severe cold or snow coming your way, you can ramp up your banners. It makes it such a unique way for you to spend your marketing dollars more wisely. Because I think, one of our mantras here is to market smarter and to be smarter in how you get in front of your clients, and when you do it in the most profitable areas. It's checking all the boxes of what pretty much every PHCC member we talk to asks. What more can I be doing, and how can I spend my marketing dollars more effectively? Getting in front of folks when they're thinking about how the weather affects their home, where of course you guys will be doing your fantastic work, is such a no-brainer. So we're going from localized, and again, you can do it beyond zip codes. You can do a radius, you can do cities, you can do an entire metro area. Changing the banners, and they come in different sizes, and the speed with which they're delivered based on weather conditions, and as important as anything, where the banners are found, on a smartphone, on a tablet, on weather.com. So to us, it's really important that you consider this as an option. Now, from a cost standpoint, again, Matt touched on this, you pay a little bit more of a premium when you're dealing with the Weather Channel. It's a little bit more like 1.5 cents per impression as opposed to 1. But again, that's upwards of 30 or 40,000 impressions a month on the Weather Channel on weather.com and the Weather app for about $500 a month. So something certainly for all PHCC members to consider as they market smarter in 2017.
All right, so we've got about 2 minutes left, and I just want to mention one slide before handing it back over to Brian. I want to mention sort of a giveaway that we've done for the PHCC industry and for PHCC members for a couple years now, I guess. We initially did this at Connect in New Orleans, and then we did a lot of them at Connect in Hollywood with Matt and I. And what this is it's an SEO ranking report. So whether you're trying to handle some of your SEO on your own, or you've got somebody doing it for you, or you're thinking about hiring somebody, this is a really, really useful tool that we encourage all PHCC members to take advantage of. It's one of the benefits of being a PHCC member, which is that we'll actually go and we'll look up where your website shows up today for some of the top searches. So all we need from you is your top 3 cities or towns that you work in, and we'll go ahead and we'll look up based on obviously the time of year. So this example is showing AC repair, but now we'll want to look up either heating repair keywords or plumbing keywords, and we'll want to figure out where you show up today. It's information that's going to help you make better decisions moving forward, again, whether you're doing SEO on your own or somebody's doing it for you. So take advantage of this offer because it's going to be really useful. So let me turn it back over to Brian. He's going to mention this and probably reiterate the importance of getting this report. And there's also some other giveaways that we want to mention. So Brian, any last words?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys did a fabulous job, and thanks everybody on the line for focusing in on how web marketing can really boost up your performance in 2017. And yes, Alon, you're absolutely right. I mean, we love PHCC members. We want to make sure we give as much of a member benefit as possible to the membership. And so, absolutely, we'd love to provide this free SEO ranking report for you. We love always helping you sort of make that decision to make a move, and so any PHCC member can get a waived design fee of up to $500 if they want to try out one of these campaigns that we've talked about. You can get credit for a free month worth of SEO or paid search management if that's the thing that that you and our team determine is going to help you the most. And of course the free website marketing evaluation that we've always provided. I think the key is this here. This webinar was about education, and we're giving you these bonuses because we want you to help you make the step into better marketing in 2017. There are 10,000 companies in the country that can help you. Right? We just happen to, to understand a lot about the industry and work with a lot of members, but that doesn't mean we're the only people. What's more important is that you just do something to get your marketing to the next level, because costs are rising on Google, real estate is decreasing on Google, and the competition that's in your backyard is also increasing. And so being on top of your web marketing game and using new technologies like the display ads with the geo-targeting that Doug was talking about, these are the ways that you get ahead. Believe me, if Amazon's doing it, don't you think you should be doing it too if you can afford it? That's the way I look at it. That's why Market Hardware does it. And so with that, I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to congratulate everybody on what's going to be a fabulous 2017. And Alon, I think it's time to hand this back to Wayne and thank everyone at PHCC. So Wayne, back to you.
And I just do want to remind everyone that we will be having a follow-up email. And in this email, there will be, a link to rewatch today's webinar along with the PowerPoint slides, and then all the information that the team at Market Hardware mentioned at the very end. We'll make sure to highlight those as well. Any questions that our members might have, please send them our way. If we can't answer them directly, we'll have the team at Market Hardware reach out to you. And I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you guys once again for the team at Market Hardware for putting on a great presentation.
All right, terrific. Have a great year, everybody.